Hello everyone and welcome back to Final Fight for the penultimate stage, which has my favorite music in the game. That's the stuff. So this stage is laid out kind of like a huge gauntlet through the entirety of the Bay Area, and the enemy layout is kind of formulaic, but not in a bad way. It just cycles through every type of enemy and throws as many as it can at us at once. For example, we just fought all the generic goons, and right up here, we're gonna fight all the big guys. They're a lot more problematic now that there's 3 of them that can charge at you at once, but the strategy remains the same. Just jump kick at them, or jump belly flop at them, or whatever it is Haggar does. These 3 don't have much in the way of story, but we do know their nationality. Bill Bull is Mexican, Wong Hu is Chinese, and Ji Oribur, if that's how you pronounce that, is Arabic. They've all decided to wear clogs for some reason. I believe Haggar's punch is the only one low enough to knock these guys out of their run. It's still incredibly hard to time properly though. Partially because Haggar punches slower than the other 2 characters. This stage is kind of generous with barrels, which may or may not contain health pickups. Usually they do. But yes, this stage is kind of generous with them, which is helpful, but oh, there, you got to see that attack where he tries to land on us after we get knocked down. The only way to stop that attack from completely demolishing you is to smash the desperation attack buttons as fast as possible. That may seem kind of cheap, but at least they did give you a way to get out of it, and, you know, this is the original Final Fight. If it weren't a monstrous beast, it wouldn't really be Final Fight. So this is the stage where they introduce rolling barrels, which can do about as much damage to you as a boss. Do not get hit by the rolling barrels. As you just saw, definitely the easiest way to deal with them is with a desperation attack. And I die up here because one of the goons sticks his foot in my crotch, which gives the others leeway to punch me to death. 1 or 2 cheap hits will completely destroy one of your lives. And welcome to the Billy and Sid round. Billy and Sid unfortunately do not have very much story, as they are replacements for much more well-known characters. As was said earlier, their gimmick is flipping around a whole lot, which makes them really easy to grab when they land. I've always kind of liked the generic punk outfit that fictional gangsters seem to have, so it's nice that Final Fight is playing into that trope. Seriously though, this music. In case it hasn't become apparent through watching me play, the most important strategy in Final Fight is to wait for the enemies to come to you. If you try and go on the offensive, you've pretty much screwed yourself. Welcome to the restroom, which has its own battle theme. We're going to be fighting a lot of 2Ps and slashes in here, so let's talk about 2P again for a second. 2P is an amnesiac hobo. He doesn't know what his name means and he doesn't remember how he got it. He also apparently has a habit of just agreeing with what everybody else says, since he has no personality to himself. We don't know exactly why he was recruited by Mad Gear, but we can assume it was because of his insane speed. This restroom is also where they keep all the slashes. Slash does about as much damage as Thrasher does. He has the incredible ability to block enemy attacks, which is why he was recruited into Mad Gear, as nobody else in Mad Gear can actually block a punch. I mean, we can't either, so we really don't have room to talk. The strategy with Slash and Axel is more or less just to keep going on the offense until they drop their guard. They're probably the only enemies it's okay to actually be aggressive with. Also, of course, their names and appearance are referenced to Slash and Axel from Guns N' Roses. I like that these two were just apparently told to stand guard right next to the bathroom exit. So between each gauntlet of enemies, there's kind of a lot of filler. I think this might be because they didn't want to transition directly from one enemy type to the next for some reason. I mean, I'm not complaining, I still get to punch things, but it's weird that there's a wave of mixed enemies in between each section. Up here is by far my favorite music in the entire game. Right alongside some guys that throw cocktails at us, but they're very easily defeated. So the design for this section is more or less cocktail guys, regular enemies, then more cocktail guys. Welcome to the hardest part of the stage, maybe even rivaling the boss fight, which is really saying something. The game throws a whole ton of these guys at us who attack very fast and very frequently. The tricky thing about these guys is that you can't wait for them to come to you like the other enemies. There's that slide kick of theirs, they can throw knives, and they can also leap in the air at you. Normally you only face one of them at a time, but right here they throw as many of them at you as possible, and it is very easy to get knocked on your butt. The prevailing strategy here is to stick and move, grab one, suplex them, move on to the next. Do not stay in one place for more than a few seconds, because these guys are insanely vicious. Luckily you gain a few invincibility frames during Haggar's suplex. If you didn't, well, this would probably go a lot more poorly. Right here's that leaping attack I was talking about. It is very hard to move around. What's worse is that some of them start spawning that way, just dropping right down on top of you for a quick stab. So yeah, just a few hits from these guys would take you out, and it's pretty easy to get hit. I suppose you could say that about the game as a whole. But I mean, if you're not a masochist, what are you doing playing Final Fight? Yeah, see, that happens a lot. Alright, so after these last two guys, it's just a bunch of normal enemies before the boss, you know, more filler. So we're gonna skip past that filler. Say hello to Abigail, everyone. Abigail is by far the hardest boss in the entire game. Fortunately, after many failed attempts, I have finally found a strategy for him. The only safe time to punch him is when he turns red and charges at you, assuming you time it properly, like I didn't there. Aside from that one attack, he will always have a longer range than you, so there's really nothing you can do to attack him. The solution to this is, of course, to abuse the desperation attack. The problem here being that sometimes Abigail will entirely avoid your desperation attack. At least he usually backs off, though. Essentially, it's all about timing, and I will get it right eventually. But let's talk about Abigail as a character. Abigail has a rather unfortunate name for a male, and he was mocked for it his entire childhood. But his parents always taught him that violence was not the way to solve anything. One day, though, he found himself wandering on a bad part of town, and found himself getting kind of beaten to death by a bunch of gangsters. As he was being assaulted, all the rage he had held up for his entire life just exploded, and he completely tore them apart. The Mad Gear gang noticed this and of course wanted to recruit him. Abigail agreed because he finally found somewhere that he felt accepted. Unfortunately, as you're seeing right here, his rage is also his undoing. He is very easy to punch whenever he gets angry at us. So long, Abigail.